Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to lesson 17A, integer expressions and exponents.
Exponents.
Woo! All right, with Mrs. Kluver and
Mrs. Johnson.
All right. So you want to be sure that you take out your notes and you're going to follow along with us in your notes.
Yes, find the 1.7 notes.
A notes, yep.
I can evaluate algebraic expressions with exponents is our goal for this lesson. That's what we want to be able to do to the best of our ability by the time we're done and we finish practicing on our assignment later. All right, Mrs. Johnson.
So finding this in our notes, we're going to take a look at some powers here on the left side. What we want to be able to do is to write them how we would read them and then figure out the value. So if we take a look at 12 with a little 1 up there, how would we say that if we were going to say that? What do you think, Mrs. Kluver? How would we say that?
Well, I know that this represents a power, so I'm going to go with 12 to the first power.
And you are right. So 12 to the first power, do we really need that 1 up there? I don't think so. I think we can just write that as just 12.
Yes.
We just assume it's to the first power, and the value of that would be 12. All right. This one. Now, I know that you know you can read it as 6 to the second power, but what is that special word that we can use for to the second power? Do you remember that one?
Ooh, it starts with S and rhymes with Maynard. Squared! So I would read this as 6 squared.
Yep, absolutely. And 6 squared means 6 times 6. Woo! And we know that is
36. We are getting so good at working with powers.
All right, here we've got 2/10 to the third power. But what special mathematical word could we use for third power? Ooh, it's got 3 dimensions.
Starts with a C and rhymes with
tube. Cube.
So we're looking for 2/10
cube. Very good. Well, that just means 2/10 times 2/10 times 2/10.
You got it.
Which we'd probably need a calculator for this one. So if we typed it into a calculator, we would evaluate it as...
Well, I know 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, and then I'm going to back it up 3 times to the left, that decimal point, which is going to give me 8 thousandths.
Ooh, I like that way to do it in your head. That's better than a calculator.
All right, now before we move any further, 7th graders, Mrs. Johnson has a great way to explain the remaining 2 powers here, which I want you to pause the video and I want you right now to see if you can fill in the verbal expression, the numerical expression, and the value for these remaining 2 powers.
You know what, Mrs. Kluver? These two look really similar.
They do.
Yeah, but there's a big difference, right? So we shouldn't get the same answer for them when we evaluate them, right?
No.
Because they look different, don't they?
Don't let us trick you.
Yeah, don't be tricked. So
pause the video. All right. So let's see what you got. Here is Mrs. Johnson. She is explaining this in a beautiful way. Let's take a moment to listen.
Let's quick take a look at the difference between a power written like this and a power written like this. Over here, this power is saying -3 to the second power. Because the -3 is in parentheses, we're going to take the entire -3 to the second power. The exponent applies to whatever it's touching. Because the exponent is touching the parentheses, it applies to everything inside of the parentheses. Therefore, this power would mean -3 times -3, which is +9. Over here, this power would be read the opposite of 3 to the second power. Now remember, the exponent applies to whatever it's touching. In this case, the exponent is only touching the 3. There's no parentheses. So that means that this exponent is only applying to the 3. So we're only going to evaluate 3 squared. And 3 squared means 3 times 3, and of course that's 9. Now, this is the opposite of 3 squared. So if I bring this negative down in my answer, think the opposite of 3 squared. If 3 squared is 9, the opposite of 9 is -9. And that's how these 2 powers are different. So we need to pay close attention to, does our power have parentheses or not?
Okay, so now you had an opportunity to take a look at what the difference is between these two. We actually say them totally different, don't we? Well, let's see. How are we going to say this? Now, the 2 is touching the parentheses. So that means it applies to everything in the parentheses. So we're going to take -8 to the second power. That's how we would say it. -8
To the
To the
second. Or square!
because we have that
forgot.
fancy word.
We'll say
Oh my
that again.
gosh. Okay.
So-
So we've got -8 times -8. Now we want to keep the parentheses around those -8s. We want to hold the negative with them. Yeah, there we go. -8 times -8, just like that. And now we know that the signs agree. So the answer is
Positive! 8 times 8 is 64, and since they agree, it's going to be a positive 64.
There we go. Now this one we would read differently because there isn't any parentheses. So we would read this as the opposite of 8 squared.
I noticed, Mrs. Johnson, how the 2 here is touching the 8 versus how the 2 up here was touching the parenthesis, which
Yep.
was grouping the negative with it.
Mm-hmm.
So how would we read this one again, Mrs. Johnson?
The opposite of 8 squared.
Sorry.
Yep, absolutely. So the squared is only applying to the 8. So we're really just taking 8 times 8. But then don't forget
The
opposite.
opposite. So what's the opposite? If you think 8 times 8, that's what? 64. So we want this tells us to get the opposite,
The
of
opposite.
64, which is
negative
64.
There we go.
Can you run that by them one more time, Mrs. Johnson, how this worked?
Okay, so here we would read it as the opposite of 8 squared, or we could say the opposite of 8 to the second power. Now, because the 2 is only touching the 8, we're only squaring the 8. So we would 8 times 8. But we can't forget that we want that opposite in the front of our answer. So 8 times 8 is 64. We're really just going to take that negative and we're just going to go bloop, right in front of the 64.
Perfect. And I know that the opposite of 64 would be negative 64.
Absolutely,
So that's
'cause we
a
know our
really
opposites.
helpful
Yep.
word.
Yep,
Really
opposite.
helpful word.
Yep.
All right. So we are going to now go into the next chunk of our
Yep.
notes. You're going to need to write these expressions down. Go ahead and do that now.
Perfect. Now you take a look at them as you write them. They look very similar, don't they?
Just like the ones we finished, Mrs. Johnson. Right?
Absolutely. Yep. The only thing I think that's different between the two is that this one has parentheses
And this one doesn't.
No, that one doesn't. So we would read them differently, wouldn't we? I think we would read this one as the opposite of 2 to the 4th power, and this one over here, -2 all to the 4th power.
Ah,
Okay,
got
okay.
that. Okay, let's focus right here, right,
Yep.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yep, right there.
So if we just think about, well, what is 2 to the 4th power?
Mhm.
Well, think about, what does that mean? That means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. But first we're going to ask ourselves, what's the exponent touching here? It's just touching that 2. So I know that 2 to the 4th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. But what do
we
I
got
have to
the-
remember?
The opposite.
Yeah. So here, this has a value of 16, but that doesn't work for this expression, does it, Miss Johnson? No. So we want to make sure that we now say, oh, we want the opposite of 16,
That's
right?
right.
And what's the opposite of 16, 7th graders?
-16. Very
Gosh,
good.
those can be kind of tricky, but
It
if
really
we slow
is.
up, it's helpful.
It really is. That 4 is only applying to the 2.
Yeah.
So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and then just bring down that negative sign. Bring down that opposite.
Whereas this one, if I think about what the exponent is touching,
It's touching the parentheses this time. So that means it's going to apply to everything
Everything.
in the parentheses. The whole thing. So we're really going to have -2 times -2 times -2 times -2, right?
oh boy.
I know, right? I think your
We
brain.
got this.
Yeah, we do. Your brain can only multiply 2 numbers at a time.
Yep.
So Mrs. Kluver, you're going to take these
Okay.
2 numbers right here.
-2 times -2, my signs agree, so it's going to be a positive
Okay,
4.
hold that positive 4.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take these two, -2 times -2, another positive 4. So now we got 4 times 4, Positive 16.
And Mrs. Johnson, this negative was included when I did my
Mhm.
multiplying there, so I'm not bringing anything else down, am I?
Nope, I think we're good.
No.
Nope.
7th graders, take a moment to just think about these two different type of problems, how they're similar, yet how they're different.
Mhm. You notice the answer? With one of them, you get a negative answer. The other one, you get a positive answer. So they look different and they get different answers. So it's important that you're paying special close attention to, does it have parentheses or not?
Got it. Let's continue to evaluate some expressions. You're going to need to write these down in your notes as well.
Okay.
So here is example 3.
Yeah.
We have the opposite of the group, -3 times 3 squared. Oh,
All right.
boy. Miss.
I know, right? Yeah. If you need a pause it to write that down before we start, go ahead. Now, when I look at that, boy, I see a lot of operations.
I do too.
I do. I see an opposite here, but I also see parentheses, and in there I've got
They're
multiply,
grouping parentheses
grouping.
here.
Yep, they are. And then we have an exponent. So whenever I see multiple operations in the same problem, I got to think
Order of operations.
does. Okay, so we would do first is parentheses.
Yes,
So,
grouping
yeah,
symbols.
yeah.
Oh, the other one came in as well.
Oh,
but
don't
we'll
look
write
at that.
down in
Yep,
a
don't look
moment.
at that. Yep.
So let's learn those grouping symbols. -3 times 3. Do the
Ooh.
signs agree?
Signs disagree here. They
So it's going
disagree.
to be negative
Negative 3 times 3?
9.
9. Yep, negative 9. Now, wait a minute, though. So we get negative 9. Now, do you see why we brought the parentheses down?
No, Mrs. Johnson, normally when I've been doing order of operations, when I simplify what's in the parentheses come off.
Yeah, they
Why
do.
did they stay on here?
Well, we have a negative 9, and so anytime we have a negative, we want to keep that negative with the 9.
That's right.
And so we want to kind of put some huggers around there.
Yeah,
Yep,
isolate
yep,
that negative,
keep them
right?
in there. Plus, we see the 2 applies to everything in the parentheses. So when we did what's in the parentheses, we still want the 2 to apply to everything in there.
So I gotta be really
Gotta
careful.
be sure we put those parentheses.
Woo!
Oh yeah.
And I gotta be really mindful when I drop things down. So here's our new expression. Make sure you are writing that in your notes.
Yep. So now the next step would be exponent. Exponent, right? So we want
Now I gotta think, don't I, Miss
yeah,
Johnson?
right. -9 to the second power. So -9 times -9. Signs agree.
It's gonna be a positive 81.
Positive 81. Yeah, but what do we got to do here? Remember, this is the opposite of whatever this is, right? So we want to, well, if we get 81, the opposite of 81 is
Negative 81.
Yeah, you're just dropping that
Wow.
opposite sign, just bringing it right down.
You know what I tend to forget about? That this part right here is equivalent to this,
Mhm.
which is equivalent to this. We just made it look so much simpler.
Absolutely. That's what
Wow.
Yep, I love it.
Great work. Now that this one is already up, you need a moment to write it down.
Mhm.
So go ahead and write that expression down in your notes for example 4. And I'm seeing lots of different operations going on here too, Mrs. Johnson.
I do
right?
too. Yep.
So we're going to have to use those order of
Yep.
operations still.
Subtraction, exponent.
What am I going to start with?
Now, I see parentheses, but there isn't an operation inside the parentheses.
Yeah.
So
It's not a grouping
it's not a
symbol
grouping
parentheses.
symbol. So we're just going to go straight to
Exponents.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
5
So-
to the third power.
Yep. So the 3 is going to apply to everything in the parentheses. Well, it's just 5. So that's 5 times 5 times 5. 125.
Did I do my math?
Yeah, you did.
correctly?
125.
Okay.
Oh, what about this now? The opposite of that. So
That's
then that would
right.
be negative 125.
And we got to remember to bring
Yep,
everything down and
that
be
one down.
careful.
Yep. Okay, so now we've got another exponent here.
We still have them.
Yeah, we do. So the 2 is touching the 5, so we just want to square the 5. 5 squared is
5 times 5 is 25,
25.
right?
so this is going to change to a 25, and everything just gets dropped down.
Woo! Now
right.
this looks like something I can handle.
Oh, yes, negative 125 minus 25. Ooh, you know what? I like to kind of think of temperature sometimes when I
Okay.
subtract. So if we have negative 125 degrees,
Ooh.
brr, it sometimes feels like winter in Minnesota is that cold.
Are we in Antarctica?
We are very cold. So negative 125 degrees, and it drops 25 more degrees. How cold is it going to be?
Gosh, I think it's going to be like 150 degrees.
But
Negative.
yeah,
150
negative 100.
degrees.
Yes. Oh gosh, I don't even know if we could manage
No,
that.
we couldn't.
But boy, sometimes winter feels like that.
Oh,
How
Miss
else
Johnson,
could we
I really,
think of- is there
I
another
really
way we
liked
could
how you
think
thought
about
about that. When I did it, I was thinking, I'm at negative 25 and I'm taking 25 more steps to the left, which would bring me to negative 150.
Yep, I love it.
Awesome. I think we have a couple more examples.
Yep, we do. Let's
So
go on to
make
number
sure
5.
you have your notes filled in. And then I'll click here and we'll head to number 5. If at any time you need to pause, rewind, make sure that you're doing that, okay? So number 5 here, this one is a little lengthy. We have 2 times 5 squared plus 4 times negative 2 cubed.
Ooh, all right. Well, I don't see, we're going to have to use order of operations.
Yes, we have
So
multiple operators
we
going
do,
on.
we do. No parentheses.
Nope, no grouping.
Yep, no grouping. So
Well,
I
this
think
is a
we're exponent.
parenthesis here, but
Yeah, but it's just, I think, holding the negative with the 2, right?
that's right. Okay.
So I think we
we're
move on to
gonna start-
exponent.
We'll start with exponents.
Yep,
we have
exponents.
5 squared, which is 5 times 5.
25.
Drop
Dropping
it all
bringing
down.
it down. Another one over here.
Oh boy.
Okay, so now the 3 is touching the parentheses, so it applies to everything in there. We've got negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2.
Negative 8.
Yep.
Did I do my math
I think
correctly?
you did. I think you did. Yep. Let's
So
bring
I'm
it
gonna
down.
Drop it down. So I have 2 times 25. I'm not intimidated by large numbers. Plus 4 times negative 8.
You know what I think when I think of the 25? I think of a quarter. I think of money.
Oh, I think of gumballs.
Oh, yeah, that's
Because
good
I can
too.
buy gumballs with quarters.
Oh yes! Oh, you sure can. So, how many gumballs could I get if I had 2 quarters?
Oh.
2 groups of 25, 2 quarters. Well, that's
50.
50.
And we have multiplication over here too, so we can
You
do
can
those
do
at the
them
same
at the
time,
same
can't
time.
we?
Yep. Okay, so here our signs agree. We're going to have a positive 50, but over here the signs disagree.
Yeah, because 1 is negative, 1 is positive,
Yep.
and 4 times 8 is 32, so it's a negative 32.
And you could put in parentheses here just to hold that negative with a 32 and separate those 2 signs.
Sometimes I get confused if there isn't a parentheses,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what's going on
It looks
there?
like plus minus.
Yeah.
We want to say plus negative 32.
Okay.
So 50 plus negative 32.
You know what? Sometimes when I'm adding integers, I like to think about, like, we have the positive team and we have the negative team, and they're both out on the field. The positive team has 50 points. Really, I'm thinking about absolute value here. The negative team has 32 points, so I'm going to ask myself, who won?
Who won? Well, clearly the ones with more points.
Positive, right?
Positives.
And by how much did they win?
I think I have to figure out the difference between 50
Yeah.
and 32. I think I have to subtract them.
Yeah. Is that
So 50 minus 30 is 20, and then take away 2 more.
is 18.
18.
And the positive team won, so it's going to be a positive
answer.
18.
I love it. Yeah.
Awesome. Number 6, 7th graders, go ahead and write that one down. Ooh, now we have grouping symbols going
We
on
do,
here, don't we?
do, and we have grouping symbols because there's an operation in there. We actually have something to evaluate.
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to have to do grouping symbols first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do that. 3 take away 12. Oh boy. Okay,
Oh.
3 take away 12. So before I was thinking temperature, right?
Yeah.
If the temperature is 3 degrees and it drops 12 degrees, how cold would it be? Well, if I'm at 3 on my number line and I back up 12 spaces, where would I be?
Negative
Negative
9.
9. Yeah.
Negative 9.
Negative 9. Yep. Now keep those parentheses because that's a negative. You want to drop those down.
That's right.
And then we'll pull down the exponent. I love that. Yep.
So whenever I am simplifying Miss Johnson inside grouping symbols and I'm getting a negative value, I should keep that parenthesis on there.
Parentheses around there.
Oh, you know, that's tricky for me to
It is.
remember.
It's something new. We got to, now that we're working with negatives and we're 7th graders, we got to be thinking differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got more grouping symbols right here, but inside the grouping symbols, we have exponents, so we must evaluate those. So we got to figure out what numbers are those before we can subtract them.
Okay.
So 2 squared,
4.
and take away 1 squared. Well, 1 squared is 1 times 1.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
can
tricky
get
one.
fooled by
Yeah,
that.
okay. So 4 minus 1.
Okay, we'll drop everything
Yep.
else down.
We still have something to evaluate in the grouping symbols here. So 4 minus 3 is 2.
It's 4 minus
4
1
minus 1 is 3. Just kidding. I want to be sure you guys are paying attention.
I was making sure you were paying attention.
Okay.
Drop that down.
Drop that down. All right, exponent. Negative 9 squared. So because it's touching the parentheses, everything in there. We got negative 9.
Times negative 9.
Signs agree.
So it's going to be a positive,
Positive
81.
Yep.
So now I'll drop down the divided by 3.
Oh, 81 divided by 3. Do we need a calculator for this, Mrs.
No.
Cooper? No, you don't think so?
No.
I mean, I just want to grab my calculator, even though I know I shouldn't.
No, we
Is there a
don't.
way I can do that? Do I have
Yes.
to do long division? Because I don't really want to do long division.
Well, I'm going to show you. I don't want you to get 6th, 7th graders, but I'm
No.
going to move my screen over here. I love division.
Oh,
So if I have 81
Ooh.
divided by 3, I am going to think my divisibility rules, which we are going to refresh you on soon here. 8 plus 1 is 9. These digits create a multiple of 3. We have divisibility. I can break 81 up into 60 plus 21. 60 divided by 3 plus 21 divided by 3. Order of operations here, y'all. 60 divided by 3 is 20, plus 21 divided by 3 is 7. You add those together, you get 27.
no way. There's no way that actually. Now I'm going to try long division on these two numbers and see if I get 27.
Okay, Mrs. Johnson.
All right, 81 divided by 3. Okay, well, how many groups of 3 go into 81? Well, that's too many, that's too big. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cover up that one, and I'm just going to ask myself, how many groups of 3 go into 8? Well, 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. I think 2.
Mm-hmm.
So 2. Now 2 times 3 is 6. So I'm going to subtract.
Mm-hmm.
I get 2. Remember, we bring down the 1. Now, how many groups of 3 make 21? Well, that's exactly 7. You're right. 27. 3 times 7, 21. No remainder. It is 27. Nice.
So 81 divided by 3, that's going to give us
27. 27.
All right, I think we have a couple more, don't we, Mrs. Johnson?
Nope, we don't.
Oh, we don't. All right. Awesome. We just went through a lot.
We did a lot.
Didn't we?
Yep, this
can
was
we
a lot of
do
new
can
stuff.
we do a quick recap for my brain? What's the main thing that we learned here today?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we learned was the difference between when we have a negative number in parentheses and we're bringing it to a power.
Yes.
Or if we have a negative number without parentheses and we're bringing it to a power.
So we want to pay attention to what the exponent is touching
Yes.
when we're dealing
And
with
then
that.
also when we've got order of operations and we evaluate something in parentheses and we get a negative answer, we want to bring
The
down the
parentheses
parentheses down. Yep.
That is going to
Especially
be
the
tricky
next
for
one.
me because
Mhm.
that's new.
Mhm.
That's new.
Yep.
7th graders, make sure that your notes are filled out. Anything that you need to rewind in the video to make sure you get down, do so. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.